What if the first sign of war was not a siren, not a headline, not a missile, but the receipt in your hand? What if the first shock came not from an explosion overseas, but from your credit card suddenly failing at the checkout, or your neighborhood plunged into silence as the lights went out? What if the next world war did not start with tanks on a border, but with your daily life disrupted in ways so small they almost seemed accidental, until you realized they were not accidents at all? In a previous video, we spoke of what looked like peace but was, in reality, only a false calm. Tonight we take the next step. We connect three events from the past few days, incidents that might seem distant from one another, and show you how they are in fact connected by an invisible chain of escalation. And more importantly, why they touch the United States directly. From drones striking dangerously close to United Nations peacekeepers in Lebanon, to Ukraine promising deeper attacks inside Russia after the strike on the Kursk nuclear plant, to missiles flying near Saudi ports that fuel the global economy. These shocks may appear scattered, but together they form what we call the silent squeeze, a tightening chain of events that Americans will feel at the gas pump, in their bank accounts, and in the security of their own communities. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to Safety Zone and turn on notifications, because the next signal will not wait, and neither should you. According to AP News, Israeli drones recently dropped small munitions near a team of UNIFIL soldiers in southern Lebanon. UNIFIL is the United Nations interim force in Lebanon, a peacekeeping mission created in 1978 to monitor the border and reduce tensions between Israel and Lebanon. Its soldiers are known as blue helmets because of their distinctive headgear. They are not combat troops, but international observers tasked with keeping incidents from spiraling into war. This time the drones dropped grenades only about 100 meters away from them. No one was injured, but the symbolism was powerful. When explosives fall next to the United Nations, the line between tension and uncontrolled escalation becomes frighteningly thin. UNIFIL itself described the strike as one of the most serious incidents against its mission in years. To many Americans, this may sound like just another Middle East story, but there is history here. In 1983, a suicide bombing in Beirut killed 241 U.S. Marines, the deadliest day for the Corps since Iwo Jima. That memory still hangs over every discussion in Washington about Lebanon. Hezbollah, the armed group that dominates southern Lebanon, has thousands of rockets pointed at Israel and a long record of direct confrontation. If a single grenade had landed on a UN patrol and killed peacekeepers from France, Italy, or Spain, the call for response would have been immediate. And if Washington's allies demanded action, could the United States stay on the sidelines? Would Americans accept another Middle East front opening while Ukraine and the Pacific already demand attention? These are not abstract questions. One spark on the Lebanese border could ignite a regional fire, and once it burns, U.S. ships and U.S. troops are always drawn closer. And here is the anticipation. This was not the only red flag in recent days. Another one came from Ukraine, and it could trigger something even more dangerous. According to Reuters, Ukrainian drones hit a transformer at the Kursk nuclear plant, forcing Reactor 3 to reduce its output by 50%. The International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed there was no radiation leak, but reminded the world that even an accident at a nuclear plant could cross borders and affect millions. For many Americans, the word nuclear itself is unsettling. It recalls the ghost of Chernobyl, when a single explosion poisoned land for decades. Or the disaster at Fukushima, when thousands of families had to flee their homes overnight. Striking a nuclear site is like tapping on glass above deep water. Maybe it does not shatter, but everyone feels the danger. That strike broke a taboo. Nuclear facilities were once considered untouchable, and the fact that Kyiv is now targeting them, even symbolically, shows how the war has entered a new stage. And it does not end there. Just days ago, President Zelensky declared that Ukraine will continue with deeper incursions inside Russian territory. Those words carry weight. They mean attacks not only on border villages, but on energy hubs that keep Moscow's lights on, on railways that feed its army, on airfields far from the front. Each strike would test how far Russia can tolerate humiliation at home. Russia's top general, Valery Gerasimov, responded that Moscow will pursue uninterrupted offensive operations until Ukraine is exhausted. This language matters. It sets the stage for retaliation not just with bombs, but with hybrid attacks, cyber strikes, and sabotage. Think back to 2021, when the Colonial Pipeline hack forced Americans to line up for gasoline in the Southeast. That was not war, but it showed how fragile daily life can be when systems are hit. Now imagine an attack not accidental but deliberate, timed to coincide with breaking news. Ask yourself, what would that look like for the United States? If Moscow decides to answer asymmetrically, the battlefield could be your hospital's network, your local water utility, or your bank's digital systems. And here is where the voice of America's own president becomes relevant. In a recent Oval Office meeting with President Zelensky, President Donald Trump warned that Ukraine was gambling with World War III. Strong words, yes, but words that echo the reality. One strike too deep, one incident too bold, and the line between proxy war and global war could vanish. We will return to this warning later because it resonates with the chain of escalation we are describing. But first, let us move south, to the waters of the Red Sea. As reported by Reuters, the Houthi movement in Yemen launched a missile that landed close to the Saudi port of Yanbu. For most Americans, Yanbu is just a name they have never heard of. Yet it matters enormously. Yanbu is a critical oil terminal on the Red Sea coast, hundreds of miles north of where Houthis usually attack. By targeting Yanbu, the rebels showed they can reach deeper into Saudi territory, close to facilities that feed the global oil market. Why should Americans care? Because shipping insurance costs rise the moment missiles fall near tankers. That cost is not abstract. It is immediately passed on to the price of crude, and from crude to gasoline, jet fuel, and consumer goods. The gas pump, the airline ticket, the shipping container, all feel the ripple. Imagine filling your car and paying a few cents more, not realizing that the cause was a missile splash thousands of miles away. That is the economic echo at work, the shock that travels invisibly until it hits your wallet. And this is not speculation. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, choke points like the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz are among the most critical oil transit lanes in the world. Block them or even threaten them, and prices spike everywhere. This is why the Yanbu strike is not just a Saudi problem. It is a reminder of how fragile the system is, and how quickly an event in Yemen can land in your neighborhood gas station. But the Red Sea is only part of the chain. To see the full picture, we must look further east, where Asia is sending its own signals. According to the BBC, 2 Chinese vessels recently collided near the Scarborough Shoal, a disputed area in the South China Sea. The collision happened during a standoff with Philippine ships, in waters that Manila claims as its exclusive economic zone. The South China Sea is not just a map, it is the artery of global trade, with more than $3 trillion of goods passing through every year. Any confrontation here involves U.S. allies, like the Philippines, and drags Washington into the equation. At the same time, North Korea has unveiled new missile systems and pledged closer defense ties with Russia and China. Reuters reports that Pyongyang is already supplying artillery to Moscow for the war in Ukraine. These are not isolated stories. They are the pieces of a larger puzzle. Multiple theaters heating at once, forcing the United States to divide its attention and its resources. When 3 fronts are burning and a 4th begins to simmer, the tolerance for mistakes shrinks. The question is not if one of these sparks will cause trouble. The question is when and where. Let us pause. We have covered Lebanon, Ukraine, the Red Sea, and Asia. But the key question remains, what does this mean for you, sitting in America tonight? First, it means the risk of sudden escalation alerts. More sirens, more emergency notifications on your phone, more drills that feel less like practice and more like preparation. Picture your child coming home from school talking about a lockdown drill, not because of a shooter, but because of a national alert tied to foreign threats. Second, it means economic friction. Gasoline prices climbing not only because of OPEC, but because tankers are rerouted. Airline tickets rising not only because of demand, but because flight routes are lengthened to avoid risk zones. Remember the long lines at gas stations during the Colonial Pipeline hack in 2021? That was just one cyber attack. Now imagine 3 or 4 disruptions stacked together. Third, it means digital interruptions. Imagine going to pay for groceries and the system is down, or visiting a hospital where software updates are delayed by cyber interference. The smallest outage becomes magnified when people suspect it is not random. Fourth, it means medical supplies that become irregular, with drugs like insulin or antibiotics delayed because supply chains are disrupted. During the pandemic, Americans saw empty shelves where masks and sanitizers should have been. This time it could be heart medication or antibiotics. Fifth, it means political and military strain. More pressure on the National Guard and reservists. More debates about alliances and obligations. More uncertainty about who gets called up and when. Imagine being a parent with a son in the reserves, checking the news twice a day to see if his unit is next. None of these risks require a formal declaration of war. 2 or 3 of them happening in the same week would already feel like a shock. This is the silent squeeze. Not one explosion, but many small pressures tightening around everyday life. And this brings us back to the bigger picture. Let us connect the points. A drone strike near UN peacekeepers in Lebanon, Ukrainian promises of deeper attacks after Kursk, a missile splash near Yanbu, collisions in the South China Sea. Each story on its own is manageable. Together they form a pattern, a chain reaction of conflict. First comes the shock, then comes the silence. And in that silence, the danger grows, because each event triggers consequences that travel across borders, across markets, across systems. This is why we call it the silent squeeze. You do not feel it all at once. You feel it in fragments. A pump price here, a delayed shipment there, a news alert that makes you wonder if your son in the military will be deployed. The real danger is not the isolated incident, it is the accumulation. And this is exactly why President Trump's warning resonates. When he told President Zelensky that Ukraine was gambling with World War III, he was not only talking about Kyiv, he was articulating the risk that all of these small shocks, in different theaters, add up to a global collision. It is the domino effect of deterrence. Push one piece, and the whole line trembles. The silent squeeze is how that trembling reaches your home before the headlines catch up. The lesson is not that we should panic. The lesson is that modern crises rarely arrive as one big wave. They arrive as a steady rain. Not every drop makes noise, but all of them make you wet. Recognizing the pattern before it becomes a storm is the difference between fear and preparation. Tonight we have seen how Lebanon, Ukraine, Yemen, and Asia are not separate stories. They are links in the same chain, a chain that is tightening around the United States whether we acknowledge it or not. Stay aware, because the next shock will not announce itself. It will arrive quietly, and only later will we realize it was part of the same escalation. If this video helped you see the pattern beneath the headlines, subscribe to Safety Zone, leave a like, and tell us in the comments which signal you noticed first in your own community. Was it the gas pump, an alert on your phone, a delay in your daily routine? Your stories are the map we build together. And in the next episode, we will show you which indicators inside America can reveal that the silent squeeze is turning into a storm. The world will not pause, and neither should you.